Hello, it is Wing Supernova, and we're back again with Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. In the last episode, we brought Mr. I think it was like Ashley Graydon or some stuff like that. Mr. Graydon, we brought him up to the stand. We put our trust in Gina first and foremost. Gina now trusts in us, hopefully. And we are going to try and pin Mr. Graydon to this crime. We proved that he was there at the scene earlier on in the day because we showed that his blood was on the disc, but we've got to hear what he has to say about this disc now. So let's see. There's a note on the disc saying, "For McGilded, but the item belongs to me. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling, on the day in question. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night." That's a well-crafted argument for the last part, at least. "Did I hear you correctly, sir? McGilded, you say? The famous London philanthropist, who perished in this very courtroom 2 months ago after being acquitted of a distinctly messy murder?" "Yes, my lord, the one and the same." "Good lord, Mr. Graydon, are you saying that Mr. McGilded and yourself were acquainted?" "Yes, that's correct." Interesting. "Order! Well, I certainly didn't expect to hear that name uttered here in my courtroom again." I did. According to what Gina told us, this disc was placed in pawn on that fateful night 2 months ago. McGilded himself gave instructions to deposit it at Windobanks. "It's funny that Mr. Graydon here is claiming the disc belongs to him then, isn't it?" In all likelihood, he's lying. So he appeared that afternoon at Windobanks in order to get his hands on McGilded's disc for some reason. Yeah, this is a big thing that we need to figure out. "Counsel, you will commence your cross-examination, please." I can't imagine how hard it is to write one of these games, because you have to tie up all the loose ends and be like, okay, which one do I fucking go after first? Do we shift the conversation over to the disc? Do we talk about his relationship to Mr. McGilded? Do we do both at the same time? How do we do this? Yeah, definitely going to be a lot of drafts that have to be done for this script before it gets finalized. And there's a lot of it, too. There's a note on the disc saying, "For McGilded, but the item belongs to me." Hold it! Then why are you going after it? Would you care to explain how this belongs to you? As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. "You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir." So you see, I have little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question. You claim that was your overcoat? Obviously, and in my haste, I clean forgot that the music box disc was in its pocket. And yet there is a note on it that reads, "For McGilded." I am a collector of rare and unusual music box discs. I first met McGilded at a gentleman's club in the city and was interested to discover that he shared my penchant in that area. "So the disc in question?" "It's a pre-production sample. I promised to let McGilded hear it." "But then you forgot it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn." "Yes, exactly." Gina didn't... I almost said Iris didn't mention when Iris is talking. "Gina didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she?" No, because McGilded had threatened her to keep her mouth shut. Which means that if we dig too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury. Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it? Let's leave it alone for the time being. Yeah, if it has to happen, then it'll have to happen, but... Let's see, let's probe until we find a method of attack. So you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag? That's right, despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious areas her kind frequent.
Objection!
Miss Lestrade did no such thing. Well, of course she would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender. You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her. That's what brought you to Windibanks. To get your hands on McGilded's disc.
Objection!
My learned friend is a veritable font of nonsense. Nonsense? I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear? Yes, my lord. Then I will continue with my testimony for what possible use it can be. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article.
Hold it!
Had you ever been to Windibanks before? Only once, for the purposes of pawning something. But like many, I enjoy browsing in such establishments. So when you noticed that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her, is that correct? Yes, that's right. I didn't notice it first, of course. Such is the art of the pick-purse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbrokery at once, in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place. Ugh, he can say what he likes because he knows we have no evidence to contradict him on this.
Hold it!
Yes, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it? That's right, this was the very man. Apparently, the police are collecting anything that has a connection to Mr. McGilded as evidence.
Excuse me!
You have something to add to that? Is something wrong, Inspector? What do you mean? The last remark Mr. Graydon made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way. No, it didn't. It's nothing. Leave it alone. Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering Mr. McGilded's possessions? I can't tell you something like that, Sunshine. What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets? Yes, exactly. You should know all about that. Magnus McGilded, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago. A man renowned through the capital for his great contributions to public life. Yet he had a dark side, too. Where are you going with this, Van Zieks? I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of his nefarious activities, are they? That's enough! Coppers like me have duties to carry out that we're not at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know. Duties conferred by Lord Strongheart, I presume. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector. The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're gonna need Lord Strongheart's paw print first. What's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord Van Zieks here. Well, it would appear that the Inspector has revealed all he is at liberty to reveal. Mr. Graydon, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord.
Hold it!
But perhaps you'd seen something of value among the forfeited items? No, not at all. Oh. A valuer was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was common or garden bric-a-brac. Common or garden bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilded's disc. Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. It was no more in the shop that night than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. So there was nothing of McGilded's left in the shop that night, nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. Bruno, if you have some evidence, then let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritatingly assured expression of his crumble. McGilded slipped the disc into his coat pocket and had it deposited at Windibanks. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption ticket. There's no doubt about it. That witness is lying through his pearly white teeth. The police were obviously after anything left behind by McGilded as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day. But Gregsy's being very strange about all this. There must be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, I need to focus on exposing the fact that Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony. Okay, so we don't want to go after the weird thing that Gregson has. We need to go after this. It would be interesting if the cat had anything to do with it, but I don't think it does. What did we find at the scene? What did we find at the scene? I don't know what piece of evidence belongs to McGilded's, except for maybe this. Yeah, this is the one for the coat. This is the one for the box. So if it's the one for the coat, then I think it might be this. Well, first off, we need to get to the last statement. I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night. If it's anything, I feel like it's this, simply because it's got Mr. Mason's blood on it. And the fact that it has Mr. Mason's blood on it ties McGilded to the murder. In fact, it's what really gave us the idea that he's the one who... Well, it gave us the evidence, the hard evidence that we needed to say that McGilded was the one who killed him. The blood on it has been identified as Mr. Mason's. I think it's this. This is the only thing I can think of. I'm gonna save first, just in case. But, yes. Okay, let's present that. Let's present this ticket.
Objection!
That's not it. Interesting. Damn it, you say? So could you cancel it? The damning inconsistency is your face. Okay. So let's just get that piece of health back real quick. Alright, here we go. And we're back. Okay. Let's think about this a little harder then. Is it the cat? It can't be the cat because I already put it on the other thing. He doesn't mark down who put it in. We gotta find out something that was at the agency that proves that he was there to take it. I don't think we have any evidence for this. I was thinking that it was something that he would have broken in to take, because if he wanted to grab it, then the only way that he couldn't have gotten it is if I'm trying to think here. If he the only way he could not have gotten the item that he's after is if it was back in the storeroom, right? Because the door was locked and he couldn't have gotten in there, or at least so we think. Yeah, I don't know what we can really show that proves that he has. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling, on the day in question. The overcoat one. Can we prove that it wasn't? Oh. Because it's got Mr. Mason's blood on it. Is that what we need to go after? Because if we can... I don't know how the fact that it would have Mr. Mason's blood on it means that it couldn't have been stolen from him on the day in question. But we know it was given to Gina right afterwards, but that's like her word versus his. I'm gonna try it, but I don't think this is it.
Objection!
Yeah, no, that's not it. Boop. Load. Okay, I'm going to look up the answer now that I have no clue, and we'll just move on. Okay, I'm back. Apparently it's the box. I don't know why it's the box. Mr. Windibank appears to have used the back of this photograph to write out a redemption ticket. He's written it very neatly, but still, perhaps he ran out of paper, so he had to use anything he had to hand. It's hard to know what's the font and what's the front and what's the reverse side now. So I didn't even remember what this box was. I thought that this was for the box that had the manuscript in it. I didn't think that this was like just a random box that was sitting on the counter, or just a box that we couldn't find. But I do faintly remember that. So this is just something that I didn't remember existed.
Objection!
This disc was deposited at Windibank's on Magnus McGilded's instructions. You knew that, and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself.
Objection!
Conjecture again, and in any case, the disc was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night. Sorry, my learned friend, but that's not true. What? McGilded had another article in pawn at Windibank's, as this second pawnbroker's ticket proves. Ugh. There were 2 articles belonging to Mr. McGilded in Windibank's pawnbrokery, and the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one. Together with your 2 accomplices, the Skulkin brothers. Ugh. This is the second ticket, is it? What did the man deposit it? The article description reads, 1 small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me. Are you suggesting that I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box? I believe there are adequate grounds to suspect that you did. This is absurd. Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There would be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. That's a good point. Indeed. The witness makes a solid argument.
So that means that for some reason, this Graven fellow needed the small box that very night, does it?
Objection!
Ooh. It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord. Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Van Zeeks? I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Windibank's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it. What? Good gracious! Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court, if you please. Yes, sir.
What prints?
These prints were taken from one of the detective's security cameras.
Ah, Hurley's red-handed recorders again.
As previously explained using this plan of the shop layout, the victim's establishment was furnished with automatic cameras in 2 locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Windibank received his customers, and the other was set to capture the shelves on which articles were placed for sale once forfeited. According to the information on this ticket, the gilded small box had been forfeited already. 2 days before the incident at 9 p.m. on 13th of April to be precise. Which means it would have been on the shelves of the forfeited items in the shop front. Now, what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. It's at 11 p.m. on the 15th of April. The victim certainly had a very full shop, it would appear. And then here we have another print. This one was taken about 2 hours after the incident. I see. So we have 2 pictures to compare. God, I gotta play fucking Spot the Difference again because my shit doesn't work. Yeah, I just really wish that I could play Spot the Difference instead of, you know, looking around at this thing the whole time. Oh, that box on the bottom right corner of that thing, that's been moved. That box has been moved. It's been moved from the left side to the right side. I think that's what that's what we're looking for. Spot the difference. Yay. Dude, fucking Highlights when I was like 7 years old. If you ever heard of the Highlights magazines, I don't know if they're still around. They had Spot the Difference in them sometimes, and it was fucking awesome. I just did that shit all the time when I was a kid. Though I must say that placing them side by side leaves me cold. Dear me, that's starting to make my head ache. Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we considered theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life. So your men had already compared these 2 prints thoroughly, Inspector? Yes, sir. We counted every single item in each of these 2 photographic prints. And the Yard's conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both. In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question, and my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy. Ah! Well, he didn't have to take the box. He could just take what's in the box and then be done with it. I don't believe it. If I could have just shown that he'd stolen Mr. McGilded's pawn box, I might have been able to break him down at last.
You know what, Bruno? I've been thinking. I wonder if these 2 photographs really are exactly the same.
What? So, counsel, in the light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? It seems that, in fact, on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion?
I don't know.
Could there be some hidden discrepancy in these two photographic prints somewhere? There is a discrepancy. I wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these two prints. What? You must identify the location in question for the court counsel. Indicate the precise location of the discrepancy of which you speak. It's here!
Take that!
Yay! Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them. What? That probably peaked the mic, I'm sorry. When you view the two pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different, the location of this small box. Let me wait. Unbelievable. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary. What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilded's small box was indeed not stolen from Windibanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves. Are you suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilded is in fact... Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those photographic prints.
Objection!
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf, nothing was stolen, which means quite simply that nothing has changed. That may be true, but... Alright, McGilded's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved like that change things? I would say it changes everything, because that means that he could have stolen what's inside it. I believe this changes everything about the case. How can that possibly be? The crucial point is the fact that what was moved is a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windibanks as we speak.
Objection!
That won't be necessary. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Van Zieks. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination. We need to see what's on that box. Specifically, evidence showing that he was shot. His blood is what we're looking for on that box, I'm assuming. Because if we can do that, then we prove that he was there at the night that this shit happened. We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth. To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing. I beg your pardon, Lord Van Zieks? This is nothing but a smokescreen. A Nipponese specialty, it would seem. What are you trying to say? My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning. That this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilded from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place. Exactly! It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilded perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society, and his reputation implied, in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense. The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets,
and a small box. I assure you, I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. Wait a minute, did you just say that McGilded is the one who pawned the overcoat? I thought you said earlier that you were the one who pawned the overcoat, and that the redemption ticket was stolen from you. You know, that does make rather a lot of sense. It's not as if it were balls or drills, is it? No goodness knows, Mr. Geller was rich enough. But you can't deposit such cash in the public, that's absurd. The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by this fine citizen could have. Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that the disc and the box are in any way, any tangible way related to this case? Well, what's the matter, Runo? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Yes, of course. You and I both know that. We know Mr. McGilded's true character, and we know the disc is significant, even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGilded's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake, that the defense's argument was flawed, based on false information. Oh no! And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. But Ginny... Could it be that Van Zieks knows? Is that why he's doing this now? Because he anticipated everything? I mean, I feel like his stance on this, more than anything, is to prove that McGilded was evil and discover what he was up to. And I'm absolutely close to being certain that it has something to do with the state secrets being leaked to foreign governments. At least that's what I'm thinking. But maybe this could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry? What do you mean, Iris? Well, what is it that you always say, Runo? Sooner or later, the truth comes out. Every time. Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGilded deposited with Windibank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. But if I put her on the stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chances of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here? We will find out what the right thing to do here is in the next episode. This is a big decision, big old decision here. I'm thinking more like testify is the right option here. But yeah, because otherwise we're backed into a corner. Even if it is going to severely damage our chances, I think we can still prove in this circumstance that she's innocent. So that's probably what I'm going to do next time, but that's going to be next time. And I will see you guys then. Thank you guys very much for watching.